Hello everybody, welcome back to another Pixel Worlds video. Today we're going to be talking about the Pixel Worlds lore mural. Now I talked about this a little bit in my lore video when I said I'd make a mural video because I really wanted to go over like a little bit of the deeper parts of the lore and not just like the news of the lore. That was basically the Pixel Worlds news lore, and this is just the Pixel Worlds lore if you want to know like the difference between these two videos. So this is actually being filmed right after the achievements video because again I'm going on like like I'm going to a hotel basically, so I'm going to be gone. I can't record, so I'm just filming some backup videos, of course. So this mural is really cool to me, and it's a really interesting story that I theorize happened. Now, make sure to understand that this is a theory and it's not like an actual confirmed thing, and I'm not even sure if the people in the lore team support this theory, but it is my opinion and I can have my own theories. I mean, theories can be made up by one person. It's not a big deal, and I'm not trying to act as though I'm like against the world on this theory. This isn't some like crazy train of thought, but it is something fun to point out and talk about because this mural hasn't been talked about at all on YouTube, not even by Earth. So I'm really interested to talk about this with you guys. So let's just, talk about it right now. Let's go into it. Can't say jump into it because I was copyrighted by what's his name. Anyways, I'm really tired, so I'm never gonna remember that name. I'm gonna be honest. He just says, let's just jump into it, and then he copyrighted that, so I guess if I say this he could probably block my video. Yeah, no, anyways, let's talk about the mural. This is the timeline of the mural, okay? And before I get into the timeline and my theory on the timeline, I'm just going to run you down like the imagery specifically we see on the mural, just to kind of get the point across that this has to do with the lore. And I'm going to look at on it a different monitor, but I'm also going to like have an image on the screen so you can like follow along with me while you're watching the video. So at the beginning, and I believe this mural goes from bottom to top for two reasons. First of all, it canonically makes sense when I read to you my theory on this, in the order of events that happen, and also you read a book page from top to bottom, and you read murals from top to bottom, and I think some people call this like an inscription or something like this. I'm pretty sure it's just a mural, or like a carving in the wall or something. I think this is just like what this is. There's probably a better word for this, but I digress. I'm pretty sure it's just called a mural. But anyways, let's just go into the direct imagery we see in this mural. So of course first we see a bunch of pixel worlds dancing around a tree. So this is basically Kumandra. Everything's fine. They're just chilling. There's no threats in the world. And we just see these houses accompanied by them. Everything's fine. Then we see people stealing, sort of, and there's like this controversy. There's locks. And then we see the monster that we saw from the puzzle. We'll get into that later. It looks like there's two factions on the side, which adds up to why Pixel Worlds was trying to add factions and, hook the lore up to factions and everything back in 2019. We see people fighting. We see people with pickaxes, big people with swords. And then we see the monsters in the middle. They're all lining up, and then the monsters are taunting us and they're making us flee and run away. And then we go into spaceships, and this is important, I feel like, the spaceships launching part that no one seems to be talking about. And then we see a little like time passage bubbles, the gas bubbles turn into like these little timers. And then we see this little like narrow slice of one of these spaceships, is what I think. So one part's agriculture, one part's a nursery, one part's mechanics, some person's actually making a pixel bot. And then there's like 3 stages of life. So there's a child, an adult, and then an old person. I'm not sure if this is one family room where it's actually like a guy and his kid and then his grandfather, or if this is representing like the 3 stages of life. So it's one person going from young to old, but we'll talk about that later on. And then we see these power panels on the side, and then these solar panels. So this is what makes me think it's like a section of the spaceship. Also, you can see there's stars around this little shape here, just like there was, just like there would be in space with the spaceships. So it does make sense. Trust me. And then we have next, these children, and again, it's like a time lapse. A kid turns into an adult who turns into more of an adult. It's like a nursery in here with beds and stuff, who turns into an old man. And we'll talk about this later. It's very interesting. There's like this machine, almost from Passenger, if you've ever seen that movie. It looks like one of those sleeping terminals that when you go into them, they make you like sleep forever. So you're still alive, but you can sleep for like 30 years, and then wake up and you're the same age and stuff like that. So it seems like it's that, and it's some futuristic technology. Again, we'll talk about that more later when we're into the theory. And then we're almost done here. We see some pixel bots right next to some computers. They're spreading some like 5G in the air or whatever, and then there's wires hooking up to these passenger like immortal chambers. And then the final tier to this thing is very interesting, and this is something that most of the people talk about, but I think they have a very surface level theory on it. They have 6 test tubes with people in them, and they're most likely Pixalians, but they could be real people, and we'll talk about that a little bit. We see a logo denoting IRL 2.0, and then we see some pixel bots powering what seems like a cryptic portal. And if you don't know what a cryptic portal is, if you've ever been to Aid, it's the little rift circle in the middle of the world that takes you to the rift world every 14 hours. Now, the next thing is all of these wires and all of the rift portals connect to power one of these capsules that can be found in the intro sequence, that can be found in Aid, one of these capsules that spawn Pixalians, interestingly. They spawn Pixalians, and when he pops out, there's like lines emanating from him like he's a god, and then there's people bowing down to him. So this person right now is very important. So now let's talk about the mural itself and my theory on it. The mural itself starts with the tree, and at the moment I'm not really sure what the tree represents. Now, there is a tree in Aid, actually, and inside the tree it says Rose of the Skies. So it's almost as if, maybe this is a bit of a stretch, this tree is like the tree of life, or the tree of the beginning of the game, right? And it harbors the Rose of the Skies. But later on, this Rose of the Skies represents the boss of the game, or the boss, flame skull thing that's inside the puzzle and that you can see inside the mural later on. So maybe that's what that represents. But also that could just be a stretch. It's just probably a tree, and they're like happy because they're peaceful and they have nothing to worry about, and they're all dancing around. There's nothing really suspicious. There's water on the ground. It's a dead tree, which is something to point out, but I don't think that's that important. And then there's also houses around. So in my opinion, just seems like it's a Kumandra place. It's just a totally normal, peaceful location in Pixel Worlds, or in real life maybe, or something. Now we move on, and we have almost an evolution. I'd like to call these evolutions because there's the big frame in this mural. It goes from big frame, mini frame, big frame, mini frame, big frame, mini frame. And I treat these mini frames as almost like a time lapse. So there's the big frame, which describes a scene, and then there's this very interesting time lapse. So the first time lapse of the, I believe, 1, 2, 3, 4 that there's here. Yes, there's 4 of them in the entire mural. This one describes the transition from peacefulness to greed and hunger and unpeacefulness, if you want to put it that way, and if you know what I'm talking about. So it starts from a house, and then we move on, and we see 2 people going for a gem. So they're, it's greed, they're trying to get riches, and then there's someone like holding up a finger, and they're trying to solve a lock. So maybe they're trying to break in somewhere, maybe it just represents a world lock or something. And then there's these people holding the world locks separated from each other. And then the house at the beginning of the time lapse turns into a castle by the end of the time lapse. So we've turned from Kumandra, peacefulness, and normalness to war breaking out and weaponry and battles and defense and castles and stuff like that. So after all of this happens, even worse things start to happen, in my opinion. So we move into basically this entire populace turning into two factions. We have the light faction and the dark faction. So we can see very clearly in this mural, and it could just be symmetry, but I don't think so. I don't think it's that much of a coincidence or that much of a design choice. I think they're split for a reason. So we've got the light clan on this side and the dark clan on this side separated from each other, and there's people fighting back and forth. Think about faction wars, that update. It's meant for these factions to fight each other and not like each other. And then we also have locks in between, and I believe there is 24 locks. Let me count again. It seems like 18. No, it's 26 locks. So 13 on each side, 26 locks in total. So we're not really sure what these locks mean, but I do actually personally think it has to do with the 3 keys that are on the, we call it the monolith demon's head. So we have 1 key in the front, and then we have 2 keys on the sides, like that, sort of. So it's like a key monster, so we're probably gonna have to, if we ever fight him as a boss fight, which would be pretty cool, and I'm not saying that there is a boss fight coming to the game, but if there were to, it'd be cool if we had to fight him and knock the keys off of his head to escape or something like that. That'd be a cool mechanic. But you can see it has tentacles or something, or actually I just noticed this now. You can see these tentacle arms on the bottom, but at the ends of them they kind of look like roots. So did this tree turn into the monster? Maybe? You can see the tree and then go down, and then, the roots of the tree turn into this monster. So actually, maybe the tree transformed the monster. So maybe, this is a bit of a stretch, but in Aid, we see the Rose of the Skies tree turn into a monster or something. Again, that's just a theory. That's not confirmed, or that's just me speculating. It's a bit of a stretch. And then people also observed that you can see pickaxes, people pickaxing at the monster, and people were saying that actually hints at the fact that you can get the cryptic mechanical boxes from mining, because, the cryptic mechanical boxes, the actual puzzle itself, has it encompasses this monster, this monolith demon thing on its main design. So it's got the true form symbols like that, and then it has the monolith in the middle with this trippy 3D thing around it. So we could be fighting that monster in the future, and yeah, I just wanted to point out that little cool hint about the mining stuff, that people thought that might have actually tried to hint us as to where to get it. Moving on, we have the monsters, and this is what I think happened. The tree turned into a demon, and all of a sudden the demon started spawning all of these monsters from the nether to come in. So as you can see, these are very, very, very clearly nether monsters. We can easily see the tentacle shooter, the flame bouncer, the wraith, the that's also a flame bouncer. It's like a flame sphere or something. And then there's the abyss walker, the flame flyer, I think that's the staff caster. Oh wait, no, that's the robe caster. Then we have the staff caster. Then we have another tentacle shooter. So obviously these are literally just all of the mobs that are in the nether. Pretty plain and simple. Moving down, we have a very interesting topic that I haven't seen anyone talking about. So actually what I think this part of the mural is this boss spawns out of nowhere, starts summoning all these monsters. So the Pixelians, or the people, just have to get up and leave. They are overrun by the monsters as if it's some sort of Undertale lore story, where it's monsters versus humans, and the humans just have to escape. So you can see all of these humans going up on these stairs and entering a rocket ship, with rocket ships flying up in the background like it's Wall-E or something like that. They're just trying to escape their planet, and then you can see the demons waving them goodbye, or chasing them as they go to the rocket and stuff like that. And for a while I was trying to think of what this was, because I saw the rockets and then I saw this little line and these people standing on top, and I didn't really understand what it was, but it's very obvious that these people are like walking into the rocket after seeing it again. And then of course the next thing is a speed time lapse transition from, soaring through space, trying to find another planet, I assume, that they can inhabit. And then we see probably the most interesting lore piece in the entire thing. So we have, maybe the next thing after this is more important. Actually, let me try to resume back in. So the first thing we have is a narrow slice, at least this is my running theory, a narrow slice of one of these spaceships that they actually entered to escape the monster-filled Earth. So we have an agriculture room, a nursing room, as I said before, a mechanical room, and he's fixing a pixel bot. And this is the first time we see a pixel bot in the mural, which makes me think that it's chronological from top to bottom, because pixel bots were never always in pixel worlds. Pixel bots got added, I believe, in August of 2017. So pixel bots haven't always been in. They used to be in the game for patch note fixes, but they actually got added to the game fully when the quest system released. Fun fact. So it's interesting that there's a wrench, so it's obvious that he, built this for the first time, this pixel bot. They're trying to build robots and stuff like that to maybe come back and fight them or something like that, that kind of thing. And then the final thing, like I said before, it's kind of like a time lapse. So, these people are going out into space to escape, but they're all dying off. So, it's a child, an adult, and then an old man with a cane in his hand. So they're kind of evolving old. I could just be overthinking that. Maybe it's just a family, but I doubt it, because it is like a transition of time from child to old person. So, yeah, that's just kind of my take on it. And then I kind of glossed over this before in like the imagery overview, but we can clearly see a circle that says IRL, which makes me think that IRL is not in real life, but rather a company named I.R.L. Yeah, that makes sense. Which stands for something else. It's kind of like one of those fake words. So it's like a fake company that has it's like by and large is actually a company. It's kind of hard to explain, but you know what I mean. It's like a word that means what it means, but it also just is an acronym for something else, if that makes any sense. So, just kind of forget what I just said. It's kind of complicated, but all you need to know is this seems like a company that's called IRL that's making these rocket ships and making these sort of adventures into space so they can escape the monsters. Now, the interesting thing is you can see two Pixalians gathered around a machine. What does this machine do? I don't really know, and I don't really understand. I don't think that really means anything, but if it does, it's a bit above my understanding. It could just be a computer that has to do with the later lore later on in this mural, but I kind of doubt it. And then the final aspect is, again, it looks like we're in space. There's just some computers and solar panels, which also makes me think it's in space. And that's about it. It's also kind of weird that it kind of looks like skulls that are in this narrow slice. I don't know if that's intentional, but it kind of looks like skulls, interestingly. But then we move on. Another interesting lore piece. It looks like it goes from like a baby child to like an adult, and then like a spurring adult with beds and these lamps going through. So it's like a isolated birthing place with this like child going through his entire life, in one location or something. Kind of a representation of a rocket ship. Again, this could be going, I could be going way too far out there, and maybe it's just a simple mural of, the turn of a man from a child to an old man kind of thing. And then you see this, like I said before, it's like a passenger, like immortal chamber, which maybe because they went out into space and went with this IRL company, they found out the secret to mortality, and that's a part of the lore. So, that all these old people, it goes from old, and then they go into these chambers to be able to keep living. And then Or actually, I think the point of the immortal chamber things in Passenger was just to transport people a very long ways without them not being able to live past the journey. Because I think in Passenger, they basically take 90 years to get to a new planet. That's how far the travel takes. However, I'm not to spoil the plot, but basically they get glitched because an asteroid strikes their ship, so they kind of like break out of their whole chambers, so they need to fix the ship and stuff, so they have to go back into the immortal chamber thing, and that's how we find out about it. But yeah, and then moving on, we see these chambers connected to these wires with these boxes with skulls on them. So are these the dead people, or are they trying to resurrect them? It's kind of weird. Or these are just computers and I'm not like looking in the right way, but I'm not the only one that thinks these look like skulls, right? Like, it's got the outline, and then it's got the two eyes, and then it's got like the thing that comes down, like the jaw. It's kind of weird looking, but maybe that was just an accident that it made it look like that. And then we see these little towers by them. I make fun of it and say it's like a 5G tower, but it looks like it's some wireless technology or something. And then there's these pixel bots next to them, right, that are powering these machines. So it looks like AI and machinery is like taken over in this era where they're like controlling these people. I don't know what this means at all, honestly. It's kind of hard to decipher, but like I said, the best bet I have is it's like these passenger chambers that are making these people like immortal, like with these oxygen based like immortality training treatment or something like that, and then we see on the last thing, which is probably the most interesting thing besides the spaceship, is we see these 6 tubes all connected to a cryptic portal that leads to a pod, which can be found in Aid, or the starting of your Pixel World's journey in the tutorial. Let you think about that for a little bit. Now, we see 6. This is very important. We see 6 pods right now in this mural. Where else have you seen 6 before that's been really important to the lore of the game? In the third puzzle of Aid. In the third puzzle of Aid, we actually have to find 6 sets, 3 for each faction. Note that each of these 3 are on separate sides, just like each of the 3 factions' sets for that puzzle were separated on each side. And each of these are separate sets. Why else would these, 6 people be in these chambers? So I actually have a very, very interesting theory about this specific frame. So here's my theory. This entire puzzle was made by F to demonstrate the history of the creation of the Pixelium. So the entire point of the puzzle was, canonically, of course, I'm not saying Endless made it or like Kukori made it. I'm saying like hypothetically, a player named F made it to represent the sacrifice these 6 heroes made to form this being or this Pixelian or something. And that's why all these people on the bottom are bowing to him, or maybe those are just rabbits or something that are just chilling there, because they've finally figured out like immortality or something. Because think about it this way, your character never actually dies in Pixel Worlds, it just respawns if it hits a trap or something. So really your character's immortal. So maybe the point is that they've solved immortality in some way, and that's what the representation of these people going from alive to old is it's the struggle of trying to develop immortality or something. And then at the bottom we've figured out immortality, but it costs the 6 heroes of these lives. So that's why in that third puzzle we have to represent these people as this guy with the the yellow PWR set with the key, or the samurai, or the Frostborn, players that used to be fighting against each other in factions came together to unite together to solve immortality in a sense. So they tried to, they used their energy, their heroic energy. I believe it was the Frostborn, Samurai, Superfly, Power Set, actually it's PWR, and then of course we have the Tormentor set, and then there was one other one that I don't remember. I'm trying to remember it right now. Come on. Oh, it's the nether set with the quick draw blades. So those are the 6 sets. 3 light, 3 dark. And then, interestingly, which also ties directly into the lore, we just have on the wall it's inscripted IRL 2.0, which sounds like it's the company's name, and it's like some experiment for the company to create immortality. And we see 3 pixel bots stood on the top, maintaining this cryptic portal, controlling it. One's on this side holding it, the other's on this side holding it, and then the pixel bot on top is floating and like controlling it around to create this figure. But the weirdest thing about this, and the creepiest thing, is the cryptic portal is connected to the pod, which creates the Pixelian. And you may be thinking, how does this make any sense? Well, I actually have a very interesting connection to bring up, and I know this is almost 30 minutes, but I actually have a very interesting connection to bring up. Go to Aid and go into the middle if you're 125 or over in your level. See how there's a bunch of wires connected to, going down and stuff? Think about it this way. If you enter the portal, you see the scripture, you see the mural in the Rift world. Now, if you go into, the intro of the game, if you literally go through the tutorial and you see that first intro sequence, you can see your soul, a subject soul, going down the mural and then flying down the same way you can fall down in the Rift world and spawning in a pod. In my opinion, this means that the cryptic portal quite literally powers the Pixelians' immortality, right? It literally powers the souls. You can see yourself go down the mural, and then it goes straight into a pod that you're created from, and then that's how Pixelians are made. A long time ago, some short film maker in the Pixel Worlds community made a video called How Pixelians Are Made, and I believe it got featured and sparked a story contest or something like that, or maybe he just promoted it on social media. I don't exactly remember. And I think they actually liked that story so much that they tried to spin it on their head and make an entire lore sequence around it. Funny enough, this whole lore stuff seemed to be created actually in Easter of 2019. So it was not that long ago when this was made. It was under 2 years ago when lore was brought into Pixel Worlds, right? With the intro sequence and the new tutorial and the rifts and stuff like that, right? And Aid was actually just locked earlier in 2020. It's crazy to think that the first viral Rift World video was at the beginning of 2020, in the beginning of quarantine. I could have got that wrong, but I thought it was like way older than that, but apparently only in 2020 it was like that video of Neo Slayer going into the Rift became like a big thing, which is pretty crazy. So, let me know what your guys' thoughts on this. If it's true that the cryptic portals actually power like the immortality and the creation of subjects, that would be so cool of a lore device. But let me know what your guys' theories are down below. Let me know if you think I'm full of crap and I'm just like talking out my behind, or you actually agree and you think this is kind of a cool theory. And that's it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I really do appreciate it, and that's it. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.